Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Navigating IT Trends 2025. Insights from the experts. I am Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5 Star BDM, and I am happy to moderate today's discussion. And as we head into 2025, the past and the technological innovation that is happening ever faster today, trends like composable architectures, platform engineering, and AI driven decision making are reshaping industries. But here's the real challenge: success isn't just about knowing what is next, it's about aligning people, processes, and technology to create measurable outcomes. So we are joined by two remarkable leaders today: John McLaughlin, editor-in-chief of IT News and Events, and he will share his insights on the trends shaping IT and how organizations can prepare for what's ahead. And then we have ROnak, CEO of Agile Infoways, who brings hands-on expertise in crafting secure, scalable solutions that drive real-world value and results. So this is not just a conversation about technology. It's about how leaders like you can turn these trends into opportunities. So ask yourself, is your organization ready to thrive in the face of change? So let's dive in. I want to ask my first question to John, who is a big disruptor himself. So, John, in 2025, as we look at AI driven automation, edge computing, software defined infrastructure, which are shaping conversations, how do you see these things happening in 2025? And which of these trends do you see having the most impact next year, and why?
Well, clearly AI continues to cause disruption in many aspects of our lives individually as well as our business lives. It's also created in the minds of organizations, leaders, visions of things that before were unimaginable. Much like in the early days of aviation, people didn't believe that machines heavier than air could fly. But once people could see planes in flight, then people realized, oh, we can build airplanes. And an industry exploded from that first simple demonstration of aviation. So now we have many people through personal use as well as business use have had hands-on experience with AI technology. And now businesses are realizing this is a truly disruptive technology. And it's a competition. So it's not something you can ignore because it's clear that the cost implications can be significant. And if you're not building out solutions to offer your product or service in the marketplace, leveraging AI technology, your competitors are, and that can give them a significant advantage. So it's not a time for leaders to sit back and say, well, we'll wait and see. It's also a challenging time because the technology is changing quickly. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of overhyped expectations. Are we still in the peak of expectations? Or are we in that kind of trough of disillusionment? People have rushed into big AI projects without adequate resources and struggle. So there's certainly opportunities to leverage the technology, but the challenges are manifold. Knowing which are the areas where you can make a significant difference with a minimal amount of risk, but doing nothing is the riskiest thing.
That is huge. That is so huge. You remind me of what you just said, what was happening at the very beginning of this new century in the 2000s, in the tech bubble, e-commerce and the internet, and there's a lot of early adopters and people were crashing and burning. And that's exactly what happened with the dot-com era. And we had the boom and the bust. And so AI is in that world. How are we going to utilize this new tool? The tool of itself will be there, but how we actually integrate it into our platforms is a big question. And before I direct this next question to ROnak, I want to remind the audience you can comment. We are live. And if you write your comments into your platform, we will see it. We'll be able to ask our experts what your thoughts are and how they want to respond. So, ROnak, from a software development perspective, how do these emerging IT trends influence the way organizations are designing and implementing solutions today? And just as John stated, what are the specific challenges that you are seeing?
Per question, Grant. So let's go back in time in 1995. Like we had only one operating system, was like Windows 95. And then in Windows 95, we hardly had a slow running browser. And in this next 30 years, things have rapidly changed. We have so many different, we have MacBooks and different size computers, then we have phones, we have different browsers. So the design paradigms have completely changed. Any software that is being designed in the market, they really have to make sure that it really gets compatible with all different devices and different screen sizes. It's tremendous effort. The IT trends, there's so many innovation is going on every day, and all the new software has to be compatible. And that's the biggest challenge with all the companies. How much can you keep up? Because the time you launch, next day something new is coming in the market. So that's the biggest part. Now another thing is this AI and machine learning integration. All the companies, they are forced to use that, because otherwise they will be left out with their competition. And it is true, this AI and machine learning algorithms are helping them in a lot of predictive analysis work or natural language processing that they are doing. It has made their software life much faster. Apart from that, using AI and machine learning techniques, they are able to give very personalized experience to their end customers. So for user experience, and all these companies, they're doing all API first approach. So what is API first approach? Is building the APIs for easy integration with the other systems, across softwares by the API first approach. And also, the biggest challenge is the UX part, the human-centered design. So they have to do this, all the companies, even us, we conduct user research. We do a lot of usability testing even before even we design the whole software, because we really need to do a lot of usability testing to make sure that our software would meet the end user's need. And this leveraging the emerging technology now about serverless computing. Now using the serverless functions, we are trying to reduce the operations overhead. So that is very, very essential. Now we talk about, for last several years, we need to process the data closer to the user or device to reduce the latency. You don't want to send the data all the time to the cloud and there is a delay. So it's now edge computing is also getting a lot of popularity. So there are different things that you have to implement in the software, that some data would process in the edge computing would be processed to the cloud computing. So those are the bigger challenges for every company to understand and implement that. Now we talk about blockchain. There are a number of different sectors like finance, healthcare, that requires for secure and transparent transactions. So there are a number of things that we have to understand, that okay, AI and machine learning came, but you have to use blockchain. Okay, you cannot stay away from that. So thinking as a one company to meet the technology needs and to stay competitive into the market. Now different things that we are doing to meet these processes, like for example, we do now iterative development in time for different development methods like waterfall method. You take the whole requirement and then you give it to developer, and then they come after 3 months and they do it, and then there are a number of problems. Now we have taken something called iterative development using the agile methodology, which is our name of our company, Agile Infobase, where we deliver the features incrementally. So you design some features, you do a scrum process, and you show that to the end customer, take the feedback, integrate that before even going to the next step. We do this demo, integrate the continuous integration, continuous development pipelines, where we do lot of automated code integration, a lot of testing and deployment. So a lot of automation takes place. We're moving anything from development to pre-production or pre-production to production. All the files go seamlessly. Same way test automation, automating the functional testing, regression testing, performance tests is very, very important. Now talk about the penetration testing. You have to regularly test the application for the vulnerabilities. And what we do is we actually try to simulate the real world attacks now in our systems. What would happen if this kind of attacks would come in. So the simulators would do that, and then we will see the system behavior. So those kind of quality assurance requirements have arisen because of all different hackers. The hackers are so smarter, so you have to make sure that your system is going to work or responds back to them, and then now doing all these things, but where is the documentation, where is the knowledge sharing? We know this technology world, there is still a lot of rotation, people come and go, so you have to maintain the detailed documentation of the system architecture, APIs, processes. These are the challenges, because you have to gather the requirements, you're doing a lot of coding, security implementation. At the same time, you have to do a lot of documentation on the architecture side. Sure, you have cross team. Another functional team is always cross trained if something goes wrong with this development team. So these kind of things where we see a huge challenge right now, but every company is trying to do and meet all different parameters that I mentioned.
I love that. The implementation of emerging technologies, and then I like you said the documentation. How do you maintain knowledge share, and do you have the expertise on the bench to be able to maintain it? Now, John, you are known for on LinkedIn by itself. You are excellence for attracting all these types of trends, topics, and you see what the CXO is looking for, things that ROnak taught. It's got to sit on the platform. We call it cloud. It is nowhere near the cloud. Right. Sitting right here on Mother Earth all day long. Talk to us about what your insights can you.
So the technology can change, and those are also amplifiers for the implementers of tools and solve issues, documenting systems bases to capture the organization's to facilitate better support, better cross-training, and that further accelerates the process. But it also exposes potential as the rich API that now become a major factor for hackers. And so having good documentation for the APIs, but also that can make those tasks easier, because fundamentally people are They don't want to do too much work. They don't want to type in too many passwords. They don't want to have too many different passwords. So security in all its forms, from training users to the challenge. And I always like to remind people that the economy of the dark web is huge, and it's probably a large prize for smugglers of submarines. Well, similarly, hackers have great resources, and should never be underestimated. They get cleverer and are also using the same strength to security challenges and roles for chief information security officers and their roles within organizations as they're moving up the management infrastructure, because non-sleep can easily dramatically have a negative organization. I mean, it can be like a devastating and even take out a whole organization should for account for the years we choose the financial organizations, and the Enron scandal, one of the better examples of what happens when accounting gets out of control. And then eventually we've had rules and laws in place to hold chief financial officer personally in the future being held personally liable for security within their organization, and that increases the awareness of improving processes to the security leadership. Fairly mainstream, but taking that to the next level with virtual reality, a lot of technologies kind of they make way through and we're starting cases for business. Reality is also moving along very quickly and now become consumer products. I'm starting to see a lot of ads again that you gather image computing showing up in consumer technology, and consumer technology, it drives a lot of what's possible, but behind the sister and inside the cloud, as someone jokingly said, the cloud is just somebody else's computer, and that somebody else's computer is running in a data center, and there are many challenges now for resources in data centers is potentially outstripping the availability, and it overlaps into other areas, including power consumption and power grids and center. Maybe not. I mean, you may have to find another data center because the data center you prefer may not have those resources available. I apologize. Let me quickly decline that one. And communication is always there. Communication has become integrated into our lives. We wear smart devices on our hands. We have glasses now that can project all kinds of information as you're walking down the street. And the more people use tools like this, the more data is gathered, the more grist that is for the mill of the AI engines that can then use that information to potentially improve our lives or to monitor us. There are other areas that technology impacts in terms of gathering data that now have people worried about who's collecting the data and what is the life cycle of that data and who has the data. And we're now also seeing regulations, and we have for a while. The European GDPR regulations have impacted how a lot of organizations manage the data. And again, tying back into the roles of privacy officers and CISOs, if you're not managing that data correctly, that can create some significant liability. So technology, I'm seeing technology and business are getting more and more intertwined, and leadership has to be kind of aware of more issues than this.
Totally agree. And I as a use case. Yeah, we've already went through this as a great use case in the early 2000s, when until there was more regulation around, until those regulations were implemented, there was before there was Wild Wild West, there was a lot of grifting that was going on along from the cyber thing. We needed the human factors of how our society operates, and we're starting to see that now in the AI world, where it's not just the Wild Wild West, that you've got to have some parameters around this. Comes a platform that can be trusted, and when you have trust, right? Then you can have things that are, the use of it will be more worldwide and more usability of it. But that has its problems as well, as you alluded to, John. Yeah. Our data centers aren't built for that right now. That kind of mass use of compute and storage, and so quickly. And then, of course, you're going to lose some people and lose some around security, around scalability, and all these things. So I see ROnak there scratching his head, because when he's developing his software, and you kind of alluded to this earlier about these trends, and you've got to still use best practices. The tech is changing so rapidly, and the use case of the tech is changing so rapidly. Talk to our audience, because the audience is like, yeah, Grant, that's right. And then how do I get my ROI out of this when things are just changing? By the time it hits the market, it's obsolete, so to speak. So how do you ensure the scalability and security in a rapidly evolving environment?
Yeah, so designing this whole scalable, secure, and trend-aligned software, that really requires a robust architecture, thoughtful design, and the integration of emerging technologies. It's a combination of so many things bringing it together. So let's explore the scalability part to begin with. So microservice architecture. You need to make sure that you use the microservices to enable the independent scaling of the different components in the software. That's the only way to avoid the bottlenecks. So even though your whole thing has crazy load coming up or whatever, or a lot of different processes are running, the microservices will be able to help you out to grow the system to a whole different level. And then we talked about the cloud native development. You have to make sure you're designing the solutions along with the cloud platforms in the mind, and whatever you're using, it is AWS, Azure, or GCP, you have to make sure that the leveraging the auto scaling and the distributed resources in the cloud environment is very, very important. And load balancing, implement the load balancers to distribute the traffic evenly, ensure that no single server is overwhelmed when you are designing the whole architecture. Now let's discuss about the performance. You have to make sure that you still have the scalable solution, but you have to optimize the performance structure. So different strategies in more on the coding side, like let's discuss about the caching strategies. You have to use the caching at a multiple levels, at the database level, application level, content delivery networks. There are a number of different ways you can do the caching strategies. When you're designing the database, you have to make sure that you employ techniques like indexing, partitioning. So that's the only way to handle the large data sets very, very efficiently. Now also asynchronous processing is also very important. Using the message queue is very important. For example, if there is a company and let's say there are 10,000 people are working, and every person is, let's say, getting 100 or 200 emails per day, how much notification you guys gonna send? So you have to have a message queue system design and workflows for tasks like email notifications, report generations. So that has to be designed with the queue structure. So you need to make sure that the system resources are really free for the real-time activities. You're not occupying the system resources for all this email notifications and like that. So you have to design the message queue with the asynchronous processing. Apart from that, designing this solution is good, but what about the monitoring? You have to look at this monitoring in place. So you have to implement APM, which is an application performance monitoring tools, to identify the bottlenecks, and then you have to optimize the resources as it goes. Very often we do a lot of stress testing and load testing, and we simulate the real-time peak usage scenarios into our system and see how it really responds. So that's about the scalability. Now, discussing the security. So embedding the security throughout the development life cycle is very, very important. Something called shift left security. So you have to incorporate security considering during the design phase itself. Whatever the practices you have, like threat modeling or securing the architecture planning, but you have to do this in the design phase itself. Now, secure coding practices are also very important. So we, as an organization, we train our developers that, hey, you are definitely a good coder, but what about the security implementation inside the code? Because they have to understand about the SQL injection that could come into your code, or the cross-site scripting called XSS that would come to your code. Even though you're a smart coder, but you don't know all these techniques, your code could be hacked very easily. So we try to train the developers with the secure coding practices, and then we do a lot of static and dynamic analysis. So we use special tools for static application security testing, which is called SAST, and the dynamic application security testing called DAST, and we identify the vulnerabilities in the early stage. So that's about the security. Now, even though if you have a security, what about the data protection layer? So we use special encryption, AES 256 for data at rest, or TLS for data in transit. And then, as John mentioned about the access control, we do implement different level of access control by MFA, which is a multi-factor authentication, or role-based access control called RBAC. So since you have different multiple layers of access control, it's difficult for someone to hack into the system that easy. And then apart from that, after you do this, you still have to mask your data. So because you could be working with different industries like finance or healthcare, so you have to handle a lot of sensitive data. So implementing the data masking and the anonymization techniques are very, very important. And apart from that, even though you have done all these things, you still could have incidents that you never expected. So you need to have the incident response plan. So you have to design the mechanism to detect that there is an incident. Sometimes you're not even able to detect the incident. So your system has to be smart enough that you have to detect the incident, respond it, and recover your system from the security incidents. And then you should also have a log to see what went wrong and how do you protect your system moving forward. So these are all different structures that you have to use, like scalability, security, implementation, data protection practices, and then incident response plan.
And I like what you just said. There's a key takeaway for me, and I think the audience would appreciate that, is that your software coder, the person that's developing the program, should also be trained in security. I never even thought about that. You always think about that, separate, but they have to be a very understanding of security. Now, I want to point this over to John, because John is an infrastructure guy. When you look at the 7-layer stack of IT, he's ROnak's at that layer 4. If people don't understand the stacking and the modeling, but I'm sure you heard what ROnak was saying, and John is at that compute storage. He sees what this huge demand that's coming down the pike here in 2025 of AI resources, let's just say. And that's going to drive a lot of demand on the infrastructure.
Right.
What are you seeing, and what kind of advice, what kind of insights would you tell us? Because you know what the load, let's just say, is going to look like.
So we just had in Atlanta the supercomputer conference, annual supercomputer conference, and there's an interesting convergence of markets of high performance computing and high-end AI, especially leveraging special purpose processors from the likes of NVIDIA. And that marketplace is fairly mature and very specialized, doing high-end finite element analysis and weather forecasting and so forth. But the massive amounts of data being processed massively in parallel, these are the techniques, along with specialized processors today from GPU type companies, and in the near future, much more quantum computing based. But they have many of the same elements. You have large rooms filled with large numbers of racks of computers needing power and cooling and consuming space. That's a challenge, and a number of the cloud service providers, the Amazons and AWSs and Microsoft and so forth, they're building out their infrastructure, but probably not be able to build out fast enough. For some companies, they're going to have to build out their own infrastructure, which means companies are now looking again at building out their own data structures, data centers, and there are challenges there, especially with availability of power. So people are now looking at more exotic locations. And in fact, there was an interesting story just recently that Microsoft is planning a new data center in New Jersey near 3 Mile Island. And if you may recall, 3 Mile Island was a nuclear power plant that had an incident where they could have had a meltdown and a major disaster. But they did have a small nuclear disaster, but it increased people's awareness of nuclear power plants and made them very scared of them. Now companies are starting to realize that this is a sustainable way of producing power, and there are a number of companies that are pitching small form factor nuclear power plants, which sounds exotic at first until you think about movies like The Hunt for Red October. We've been putting nuclear power plants in submarines for freaking decades. We've been powering aircraft carriers with nuclear power plants. So I think there's we'll see over time some commercialization of small form factor nuclear power plants to grow out the data center infrastructure. There's also a lot of pressure on chip designers to increase the efficiency, because if you project out the numbers, they just are unsustainable, even with nuclear power. So the pressures are multifold. And each of those challenges also ties into time to market. So that creates some opportunities for new cloud service providers as well to help companies roll out that infrastructure, and much like cloud share it. So you get the very large scale providers like AWS, but I think we'll see a growth of medium-sized regional cloud service providers trying to drive those costs down. A lot of it is tied into storage. So you've got a massive compute capability. You need data to process, and then once you process the data, you need somewhere to put it. Another challenge kind of tied into producing content, especially around AI, and ties into some potential solutions is, how do I know this is real? So I've generated an image, and that image can be manipulated. How do I know which is the real one and which is the manipulated one? And I see a lot of potential for building out infrastructure for proving that this document, this image, this video is the original through a combination of digital signatures and blockchain technology. I see that on the horizon. I don't see it much in place yet, but as people start to see fake stuff, they go like, whoa, how do we solve this problem? And I think that's one of the areas where blockchain has a real potential.
This is important. The source of truth. What is the source of truth?
Right.
We do have a question from the audience, and I think it's apropos to ask it now. This comes from Carl Lorenzo McIver. And what he is saying is AI a blessing and a curse? And we probably would agree it is. However, we've got to have account. We got to be accountable. We've got to be responsible for its use. And there's hesitation, like we said. You said, both of you said earlier. There's some hesitation on business to keep building out, and then some people say, but from the competitive lens, I can't wait. I've got to do it because I don't want to be obsolete, so to speak. As things come out, we're hearing about quantum computing. We're hearing about agentic AI. We're hearing about these different types of robots. No one wants to be behind. But is AI a blessing and a curse? And his question is, this way they're not investing too much in success and not being depressed when it doesn't work out. Let's say in expectations from a business aspect. What are your thoughts? And this is for both of you. Right. Whoever would like to go first.
Well, anytime there's major change in technology, people will attempt to do things that won't work out. So early adopters, they suffer the arrows in their backs. They will try things out and they'll have failures. And then there's also a hype factor where people are promising the world and they can't deliver. So I think we're going through that cycle now. And yeah, you're right, it's a challenge. I think for most people, one of the challenges with AI is how did it come up with that conclusion? So what's the auditability? What's the justification for? And we're seeing with early tools like ChatGPT, we can see when it gets it wrong. It's like, whoa, how the hell did you come up with an answer like that? It's clearly wrong. Well, what if it's an area where it's not so clear if it's right or wrong? How do you probe and make sure that there's a traceability and justification? As we used to say to our kids, I don't need the answer. I need you to show me the line by line how you came up with the answer. And for some of our AI techniques, we don't have that.
Very interesting. Go ahead, ROnak.
Yeah. So let me back this up with one of the solution that we have designed recently. I'm trying to answer the same question with the example. So we are working with one of the Fortune 500 company in the US. It's a big financial company and does a lot of tax filing for different companies as well. And the problem that they were facing is, they work with all different states, 50 states in America. And for example, let's say there's one company in US, headquartered in New York, but they have offices all over in America. Now, every state has a different requirement because this company also are filing tax exempt form in every state. Now, every state has different formats, different way, different rules and regulations. So this company that we are working with, they take care of their clients by filing all tax exempt forms for them in all different 50 states. It's just crazy amount of manual work and different forms that they were filling up, number of mistakes when they file it, and then the forms come back and then they have to redo. So we did this whole process through the software implementation, a lot of AI implementation, a lot of different automation algorithms that we wrote. And their customer only has to fill one form per state because they have branches in different state. Every customer has different branches, and then we take that feed and then we feed everything into through the automation and AI techniques, because we do a lot of validation. And then because it's a financial data, you have to be very, very careful when you file all these forms to the department and state. And it was about a couple of years of project, but we successfully achieved this whole AI and automation with them, and their life has become so smooth because it's a Fortune 500 company. They do billions and billions of dollars of business with their customers. So their mistakes can really create a big problems, but this AI automation. So in that way, AI has helped them a lot to make their life so easier. So I'll tell you the amount. They had every state had they had like 50 people in every state who is working for one customer, and now we are doing that for less than 5 people with completely automation. Anything that was achieved in 10 days of time, that is being done in 2 days of time with the validation, with like 1/10 of the people. So you can imagine how AI is bringing help to the customers. Yes, there are definitely disadvantages on the AI, which John mentioned about. Can do anything. It can produce president's voice and mimic something else. So it's a very, very crazy thing that you have to be very careful in terms of the authenticity. But AI is a thing that would never end. It's just going to be a lot of innovation that is coming up, and we are at the
Right.
baby steps at the moment.
And you brought up a point which is, I think, part of the question, which is for a lot of people, AI is a little scary in that potentially their job goes away. And there certainly will be a loss of, let's call it, less than useful activities. Having humans do things which a machine can do, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But we still have a lot of people doing a lot of roles that can easily be automated. But it creates an opportunity for a company to say, well, you have the people, now you can take on more tasks. Yeah, you can cut your costs by laying people off, but you also have the opportunity to take on more projects because you're more efficient.
This is so important. So we want to continue with the audience. They sent me this question, and this came in. They cited Gartner talking about as we go into 2025 and actually further, particularly into 2028, and they're talking about agentic AI as a top strategic technology trend, with 15% of day-to-day work decisions will be made autonomously through such AI systems. So the question for both of you is, how do you foresee this influencing decision-making processes within enterprises, and what steps should organizations take to potentially integrate agentic AI effectively? And I want to caution you both when you answer that, because what you saying, like misinformation, and if you do get an answer that you feel is correct and then it's wrong, there's accountability, responsibility, there's legal. I mean, who wants to jump in?
Well, I think one of our challenges we have that we tend to overlook is that businesses are run by people and by layers of managers. And there's a challenge for the layers of managers above the engineers who are implementing whatever has been designed to validate the processes and to make sure that they're providing value. And I think that's an area where, the classic Peter principle, how many people have gone into those higher roles and their skills have atrophied. So I think there's opportunities for retooling management to leverage the new technology to not only make their organizations more agile as well. So it's not just a technology issue; it's also a people issue as well.
Good point. ROnak.
Yeah, so first of all, very important thing is how the AI model is trained. AI model is definitely trained by the data. Now, where this data is coming from, where is the data source? You have to make sure that there is no bias in the data. If the AI model is trained with the data, with the bias presence in the data, it's gonna throw a wrong result. So we need a definitely an audit process. That yes, eventually you want AI to make the decisions, but before even you start that, there should be several tests that should be done as an audit to see that this AI is really giving the right results or not. Also, what happens if AI is trained well on the perfect data? We did the test, it passed all the tests, and then after in the real world, AI made a wrong decision. Who would be the responsible when that happens? You AI is not a person. You can't really go and catch them. So that's very important. So now you need to have a very process oriented steering committee in place, like governance body or a steering committee who would be responsible if something goes wrong. So AI is definitely going to be a leader, and they definitely going to start making number of decisions
Right.
moving forward. They are already making number of decisions right
Well,
now.
there's an
But
example of that kind of brought up some of these issues, and it has to do with the U.S. prison system. Turns out we have 1% of our population are in jail, and eventually they all have to leave. And few people just walk out. Usually there's a parole process, and then there's a decision-making process. This person has done these things, and he's served this amount of sentence, and this is his family circumstances. Should we allow him in parole or not? And the data set that was used to train people, to train the AI, was based on observation. And when that is applied from the outside, people were very upset because they were saying, wait a minute, this black guy got treated completely different from this white guy. The data is racist. But there's more complexity to it. It says, well, this particular person is going to a community where many of his neighbors are also felons. And in California, I remember this statistic a number of years ago. Number one reason to be in jail in California was parole violation, because people went out and you're on parole. You may not hang out with a felon, but my brother's a felon. So if I go have a beer with my brother, I can be arrested. So it's not just the technology, the implications for managing the processes and understanding unintended consequences, they become real management challenges.
But what you said is so important. We can't be overly dependent, and just accept whatever is that the AI engine, let's say, spits out is the ultimate truth. The source of truth. The accountability is going to still be on the human component and the community in which is affected. But as you just stated, John, a lot of the human experience is biased,
right?
Is leveraged.
Well,
so
in that example,
how do you change that?
Well, in that example, there's other data now becomes available, as you can start to see. Well, why are we having this higher recidivism issue? And then maybe there's areas where you need to provide alternate reintegration strategies for ex-felons. And if you don't have that, you end up putting people back in jail. And it's like, well, that wasn't what we wanted. We want to improve the society and not just punish for the sake of punishing. And of course, from a political point of view, it's a matter of following the money. Where do we want to spend our money? Do we want to spend our money reintegrating people, or do we want to make prison systems profitable?
I want to ask this to ROnak, because he has been in software development, customized software engineering for 17 years. And what I'm hearing in my world, and I see a lot online, is they start to like all of a sudden the AI is competing with human intelligence, right? I think people need to understand what is software engineering, what is an AI, so they understand it's not a sentient, conscious being. It's a combination of mathematical formulas and that type of thing. Help us to discern what is software in today's AI models.
Yeah, so amazing question. Yeah, so the software, the whole process is changed in, I would say, last 5 to 7 years. The way we used to design the software back in time. I used to be a coder as well. I did about 8 or 9 years worth of work in Charles Schwab and Citibank, and after that I started my own company in 2006 onwards. But the whole trend is changed so much, and this AI itself has brought a lot of innovation in the software development world also. So even when we were writing the code before 3 4 years, let's say it used to take us to develop one software for for example, 6 months, with the use of AI techniques, that has gone down 30-35% already, because there's so much of help that we are getting from the AI tools for fast production of the software code. It's not only on the coding side. Now the code is done, but now we talk about the actual quality control side. Now we have these AI quality control tools that helps us in a lot of testing side, a lot of automation side. So mimicking real world scenario, let's say if you need 500,000 people to come and create a load, you can't do that. But these all different tools and AI techniques are helping us creating 500,000 real world load into the system and see where the network leakages are, where is the leakage, number of other leakages are. So number of things could be identified by using the AI tools in terms of coding, quality control. Now talk about the deployment, this continuous integration, continuous development pipelines that we are designing. You could have 1,000 coders sitting in all different parts of the world, and they are working on the same software. Because of this continuous development pipelines and automation workflows, no one would step into each other's code. It's all because of AI and automation, that really checks every point. Otherwise, someone would overwrite someone else's code. So that's where, AI has brought so much innovation for the world, but so much innovation inside for the software development itself.
Mm. John, you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a little degree of black magic to how AI works, and there are the data that's input can be used to build a neural network, and then you put data into the neural network and you get results. So much like the way the neural networks work in your brain, and it's the training of the AI engines on the data that allows you to build up those neural networks that allow the AI to make decisions. And it's it's like many little pieces of data all combined to provide this network that produces amazing results. The challenge is again being able to interrogate that network and say, well, what are the decisions effectively? Like in the early days of AI, we would have expert systems that were built out of rules. If this, then that, or if this factor and this factor, then that. So being able to automate those rules is really what AI is these days.
Let me ask you this. I want you to act as if you are an AI agent talking to John, because you curate all this information from all your feeds. You're coming in every week, every day, you're putting out your newsletter. So the audience that tunes into your newsletters, they're expecting information. They're expecting insight. As John, the AI agent, I inputted, John, what should I be looking at in 2025? What would you say?
So part of my process is I go through many sources and make selections, but I also have many subscribers, and I keep track each day of what are the articles my subscribers are clicking on, and that helps kind of steer me to what are the topics that are most interest to people, and that kind of updates the neural network in my brain that these are the topics that people are concerned about. And then over the years, my experience around what is your self-serving marketing, it's like hype, and those are the kind of stories that people don't really want to see. They'll look for analysis and insights. And at this time of year, many people are producing articles about that are either retrospective, what did we learn in 2024, or they're writing about what they're expecting, technology that will be hot in 2025, those kind of articles. I know there are no surprises for some of the hot topics. Some have addressed, AI is a major one, security. Some of us, as they say in sports, is like blocking and tackling. We build out huge infrastructures. We run our business on technology, and it all has to keep on working. And most of the time, that's what people are spending most of the resources on. But new technology or evolving technology, what seems like new technology is the overnight success. It's like, yeah, but people have been working. Robotics is an overnight success. I saw recently our friends at Boston Dynamics put out a nice little video, which was the progression of their robots over the last few years, and it's amazing how the technology has changed, and we're now seeing practical applications of robotics that maybe only large industrial systems had, like automated robots that do French fries. Mm-hmm. So that helps address the challenge of fast food restaurants where they have low cost labor, or low cost labor isn't low cost anymore, and that's a challenge for them.
This is so important. I want to ask ROnak, we got a few minutes here. If you could develop any software application for a business, what gets you excited? What are you passionate about creating in 2025?
I think creating the best software in 2025 is really understanding the business objective of my customer. It's very, very important. Any company who wants to do it, because you really need to understand the business objective, and based on that, which emerging technology you're going to use. Are you going to use AI? Are you going to use IoT? Are you going to use blockchain? Or can you even create the combination of all those three to address the business challenges that my customer is facing and give them the right combination solution? That would be the very, very important part. Whether you are a great software company, but if you cannot analyze your customer's requirement properly, you will not give them the right solution. So that's very, very important. Now, what I emphasize companies like us to do a technology landscape analysis for their customer. So you make sure that you do the trend analysis, monitor the industry trends, check the competitor adoption for your customers, and based on them, give them a thorough gap analysis. Identify the gap into their current IT capabilities, infrastructure, and then give them the right solution. Sometimes software companies are so fast to give them the solution without even doing the gap analysis. You have to have a thorough gap analysis, and then you do it. And very important is, do not go for full software development in the beginning. Go for pilot project and validation. You have to do that. Otherwise, there are so many things that could fail if you go so fast and do the whole product without defining the KPIs. You have to make sure that you have clear matrix on return on ROIs or operational efficiency that your software is going to bring, the user satisfaction that you're going to do, and also you have to make sure that there is a time to market given for your customers as well. You make a great product, but by the time you launch the product, the time to market is not there, because something else has come in the market. So you have to do all
market in time. So important. John, we've got a minute. Let the audience know how they can get a hold of you and how they get a hold of your amazing newsletters that you have.
So a couple of ways. So you can get me through LinkedIn, john.j.mclaughlin and LinkedIn. itne.info, so 4 letters, itne.info will get you my daily newsletter, or actually it gets you the weekly newsletter. And then through LinkedIn, you can get to that through enterpriseitnewsandevents.com. So it's kind of a phrase to make it a little easy to remember. So the daily newsletter is on LinkedIn, and I also do an email version on Substack. So you can also find me there on itnews.substack.com. itnews.substack.com. Substack is a great platform for publishing email newsletters.
Now, good information, good intel. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for sharing your insights and your expertise. ROnak, you got 20 seconds. Tell us how to contact you in 2025.
Yeah, anyone can contact us through our website, agileinfoways.com. It's AGILEINFOWAYS.com, or you can always find me on LinkedIn, or just shoot me an email, ronak.shah@agileinfoways.com, and we'll be happy to help.
Well, thank you both. Happy holidays, and looking forward to the new year.
All right.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.